So hey you guys, welcome back. So today's video is going to be about maintenance. Now don't click off. I know maintenance sucks for everybody, but I'm hoping to demystify some Florida garden maintenance here. The way that we do it is hand pruning, hand trimming, hand shaping. And I want to share with you the biggest reason why. I'm telling you, I know that a lot of the garden services that come out, it's pretty much hedge trimming and they're in and they're out and they're done. And I know that's an efficient way to do things. However, just the difference in what you get from that product is amazing. So I want to share with you how often we trim, how we overall trim, and kind of what to expect when a proper trimming is done when you do it every 60 to 90 days, because that's truly how Florida Garden Service or how Florida maintenance should be done. I find that it works the best that way. Do you need to do a little cut or a little spruce up here and there between that time if it's heavily raining? Maybe, but overall, your garden service in Florida really should be just kind of getting into your garden about every quarter. That's the average amount of maintenance. That's what I do in my own space because it's just because we're busy people. So I want to share with you kind of how we do it, what it looks like after we're done. It's kind of like it's nice and rounded, it's nice and shaped, but it is an aggressive cutback because that is what we need. We need to let air into those plants and trees to really flush out, really become thick from the bottom out. So let's walk over here and I'll kind of share with you what how that process goes. Look how much comes off one plant when you trim and you shape. So typically gold mound, you want to make sure that you almost take it back down to its original size. Now in this particular home, this client likes them individual. You can keep them as a solid group planting, but you can let them become individual if this is a look that you like. But this is a harsh cutback. So it's been almost 4 months since this house has been trimmed, and you can really see that it now looks like a brand new landscape again. The hand trimming really does a nice job of making sure that everything is clipped and rounded, versus when you come up through with a hedge trimmer, then you're pretty much just cutting those top edges of each plant. And I'm telling you, that look, it leaves all those brown edges and tips and leaves it susceptible to pests and bugs and disease. So this is really the important way to do it. It's really the efficient way to do it. And if you've only got to do it, every 3 months or so, why not do it that way? Why not do it the right way? But that's exactly how you trim foxtail ferns. So the one thing I love about Florida plants is that overall, if you give it a bad haircut, it's going to flush back out. It's going to grow. So why not practice? Why not get in there and figure out exactly the shape that you're hoping to achieve with a planting? You see like what Bernabe's doing here? He's really making sure he's kind of following a curved path. And all he's doing is trimming the things that are on the outside of that curved path. And you also want to see there's a big gap in here, and this is just the way the tree grows. So the goal is to get that and open that up. And I know that sounds like it's counterproductive, but if you can open that up and allow sun to get in there, once it's fertilized, it's going to push energy back out into that hole, because plants naturally do want to fill in those spaces. They kind of want to become full and become solid and create a canopy. So that's exactly what's going to happen with that tree. Now I know hibiscus trees are, especially these lollipop shapes, are very controversial. Some people love them real full, real natural looking. Some people want them like a nice rounded ball. So it really just depends on, your space, your house, what you're looking for, how much coverage you want out of it. But don't be afraid to cut it way back a couple times a year. I'm talking like make it a nice lollipop shape, and then allow it to flush out in all those spots that it might be missing. Maybe a bird nested in a certain spot, so you've got a bald spot. So by cutting it back, you're really allowing it to regrow all that new growth. It's very, very healthy for the plant or the tree. And then take that time to fertilize. So that way, it's got that energy to really push out some nice growth. So I guess the The goal of Florida gardening with hand pruning is don't be afraid to cut back. Don't be afraid to bring it down really small. If you make a mistake and you end up chopping a side of it off, chop the other side of it off and round it out. Allow it to flush out. The whole goal is for that heat, that Florida sun to get in the middle of that plant grouping and start to grow from there. Because if not, you'll see what'll happen here is all that top will be beautiful, but the bottom will be leggy. Now, in this particular case, this is due to rabbits, so it's not necessarily due to poor maintenance from this customer, but that is exactly what happens naturally. The plant is always lovely at the top. It always grows pretty much just wood at the bottom. So when you come in and you do those heavy cutbacks, it keeps that plant lush and full and tropical. So that's the goal of maintaining it. And you don't have to come out and be a weekend warrior and do maintenance every single weekend. You can do this every 2 months in the summer, and then once or twice in the winter. I mean, it's really not a lot of upkeep if you maintain it that way. So Bryce, let's take a peek at these dwarf bougainvilleas. I know bougainvilleas can be tough to maintain. Not only do they have the thorns, but they also can really get crazy. Even the dwarf bougainvilleas can do that. Now I know it's enticing when people see that dwarf bougainvilleas will be maintained and easily kept at 3 foot tall, but that doesn't mean they'll stop growing at that. So I put them in knowing that these are going to need a cutback, again, every 2 to 3 months. So what you want to make sure to do is take them way down, because that keeps them lush and full. Bougainvilleas are one of those plants that like to arch. They like to really kind of get outside their surroundings. So they have a tendency to become beautiful at the edges and then not so nice down in the middle. And then you wonder why every little storm there's all these broken limbs. So really good idea to get those bougainvilleas back down to almost the size they were when they were planted, especially the first year, and then really let them become a nice, thick, dense, almost ball-like planting, and they will flush right out. I promise you they will not keep this kind of real hedge-trimmed, real tight look the whole time. This is really just for the health of the plant. So just look how nice and dense these guys are. They're a nice solid. These plants are a few months old, so they've really started to come back and fill in, and they're just going to be a gorgeous plant. Now, the guys have trimmed quite a bit of this off, but the goal is to have this plant about this size here. So you kind of want it in this range, and you kind of want them all to connect. I don't want them to be individual. However, by doing this, we're really preparing them to be a solid, dense grouping. You don't want a weak link in this grouping. Neither do you want that in any of your plant groupings, because that's really what helps and keeps them condensed and keeps them interlocked. So, you guys are a norm to this channel. You know that the false agave is a staple in a lot of my gardens. I absolutely love what it does in a landscape. What a sculpture it makes. And it grows nice and slow, but it gives you that impact. So this one's got about 3 feet to go, and when it becomes that 3 foot height above where it's at, it's going to be just such a focal point in the front entrance. However, very quickly after planting, the following question from a client is usually, how do I trim this guy? Because he does have these points along the tops. Now, I love this particular version of agave because it does not have thorns along the leaf itself. It's nice and smooth. However, these points will get you. So what I usually tell my clients, I wish I got here before the guy started trimming this, but you can kind of see where those cuts are here. And the way that I find it the easiest way to do it, if you're trimming the agave, you're really only trimming the ones that are kind of hanging down just like this. So the best way to really do it is take your foot, put it on there, and use a sharp knife. Could be a steak knife, could be any knife, and then slice it there. And that way you can just go all the way around the plant. You don't want to use hand clippers, really hard to get in here, and you just don't want these points to end up anywhere they're not supposed to be. So, but yeah, just put your foot down on there and slice and go all the way around the plant. And then you do that really with agaves. You only have to do that about twice a year. So overall, these are a low maintenance accent feature. So don't be afraid to throw them in your garden, because do they bite? Yes, but you can work around that once you kind of figure out how to maintain them. So I know I mentioned hand clipping is king, and I really do believe it is. And once you kind of get it down, it really does. It not only is it beautiful, but it's really not that much more time than hedge trimming. You really can just kind of come through and just selective cut what you want. However, I don't mind. So things like these podocarpus, absolutely hedge trim them, especially if you have a very long expanse of those. A lot of people use them as privacy hedges. So they're 5 or 6 foot tall, and you got a hedge trim across the front and hedge trim across the top. Now that I can completely understand, and that's a time saver because of all these little needles. However, when it comes to big leaf plants, big tropicals like Lucie or sea grape, definitely take that time to do what the guys are doing here. Just hand trim those edges. You know, you can get a real crisp, real clean line. But the last thing you want to see is every one of those succulent leaves. You don't want to see that brown edge, that harsh line, that burnt edge all through the bush. I might get Bryce to slide in a picture of those. I see them all the time in big communities. I get that this is going to, you know, hedge trimming, something like this will probably take about 20 minutes. Hand trimming, maybe an hour. But what a huge difference, and you really can get a selective cut on this. You can really make sure that any gaps that you have, by hand trimming just the right way, you're going to fill those gaps. But hedge trimming, it's pretty tough to try to get it just the way you want it. So you guys can really see what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it condensed and full. About 5 months in the ground, not been trimmed, but you can really see things are starting to come in and fill out. There's some gaps here and here. That's why we're trimming all of these top heights down, because naturally Lucie will throw out bushes on the strongest stems. So if this stem isn't trimmed, you won't get growth from right here where you need it. You'll get this growth coming out this way. So it's really important to get in here. Even if you want this to be a 6 or 8 foot or 10 foot, definitely trim it down, because you want the whole plant to get that size, not just individual stems to get all wonky. Because what'll happen the next rainstorm or heavy winds, this'll break, and then now it's wonky anyway. Taking all of those tops off, you're taking anything that's going through the fence off, and you're pushing and forcing growth out in the right places. So if you guys are regulars to our videos, you definitely see the quarter lines. They're in a lot of my projects. And I did a video last year on how to trim and how to propagate your quarter lines, because they're so very easy to do. So I thought this is a perfect example. This is a cluster grouping. This is the way I like to plant them. This has been in the ground, I guess 6-7 months now. And really, you kind of see how this one here has grown so nicely, but then there's a gap here. There's a hole into this spot. And if you look at everything from a whole, everything in this area kind of has a nice layered effect, because these have been trimmed and put back in. So today we're going to trim this guy right here, take him down to about right here, take that old growth, scar it up a little bit so it promotes those roots to coming out, and taking this guy and putting him right in this hole. So now this beautiful clustering of leaves is going to be right where it needs to be.
Why are you doing that? So it fills that hole?
So it fills that hole. And that's what's so magnificent about these quarter lines, is because really you can just kind of place them where you want to. It's almost like a bouquet of flowers. You can arrange them the way that you want to. They're not in a fixed location. So you just cut that stem off, put it right into the ground, it flushes out and fills in that gap. So anywhere you have an open stem, cut one from back there, or a pretty one or a tall one, and then stick it in the ground. That way you always have that layering. You don't see any of that wood. So that pretty much sums it up. I hope that those tips helped you guys. You know, I wanted to make it to where if you're out in your garden, you kind of gives you some insight, some energy to get out there and really shape and trim your plants. And it doesn't always have to be the traditional way of hedge trimming and in and out. This is something that can be handled by a personal gardener. You can contact us if you're in our area, or you can just kind of follow along these guidelines. And keep in mind, trimming and maintenance, it's not always for the instant beauty of what you're doing now, you know, because this is going to look nice, but it's not going to look great when we're done. What's going to look great is the overtime of doing this over a year. You're really going to see those new plants really become what they were meant to become by maintaining them properly from the get-go. So I hope this video helps for the health of your future plants. If I leave anything out, you have any other questions, please stick it in the comments down below. Please do not forget to subscribe if this is your kind of thing. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the very next video.